From a highly secure network of top secret locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider on the Mend edition. I am Mike Finger, joined by Express News Spurs beat writer Jeff McDonald and sports editor Nick Talbot. Victor Wembanyama's on the shelf. Stephon Castle's on the shelf. Dylan Harper's on the shelf. Even our Tom Orsborn is on the shelf, but we're all gonna try to make do, weather on. We got a lot to talk about this week. Jeff, where do you want to start? I know Tom had reported yesterday that the 7'4" Frenchman who had been the terror of the NBA for much of the first month of the season will be reevaluated in a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after an MRI showed that he had a calf strain. Stephon Castle's not going to play against the Memphis Grizzlies on Tuesday night due to a hip issue. Where does that leave the San Antonio Spurs at the moment?
Screwed? Okay, podcast over. We'll see you later.
Come on, this is a positive podcast, Jeff McDonald.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say it kind of puts a damper on the good vibes though when Victor's on the shelf for an extended period again, and it's those calf issues have become a bugaboo, not just with the Spurs, but with the Spurs. He's the third guy since training camp to be out with a calf strain, a calf issue, but also just all across the league. It's just rampant, and kind of one of the things I'm going to investigate today, if I can, make some calls on is are calf strains like just more prevalent in today's NBA, or are we just more attuned to them because teams have figured out that they lead to much more serious issues sometimes, and so they're taking extra special precaution with them that they might not have 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And I'm guessing it might be a combination of both things, that the pace of play in the NBA these days, it's played faster than it ever has. The number of games, the number of mileage, the number of, I think all that contributes to it. And then I think teams are very quick to pull the plug on any kind of calf soreness whatsoever, because we all know that they can often lead to Achilles issues. So I think that's the combination of the two things. That's why the Spurs are being super duper cautious with Victor. Not going to let him anywhere near a court till that's resolved.
Yep. And I think that's probably the wise course of action. You mentioned the pace of play, just the way that a center, just watch one game, and it's not just Victor Wembanyama, but anybody who plays a position that used to be lumbering and sort of station to station, and you'd have a post move at one end and you'd lumber up the court and then defend a post move at the other end. Like now, a guy like Victor Wembanyama is just all over the court, covering so much ground so quickly. And that goes for basically every position on the court. Like you said, so many more miles, so many more steps put on these calves. And the worst case scenario is so frightening in terms of an NBA season, in terms of an NBA career, that even if this is not the specific type of calf injury that typically leads to Achilles injuries, even if it doesn't look like Kevin Durant's calf looked in the finals that year when he blew it out, or like Jason Tatum's looked last year when he blew it out. I think
Halliburton's. Name your guy.
It's like it's understandable why, when you're built around a singular player like the Spurs are, you would go above and beyond in terms of caution. And I think 2 to 3 weeks. Generally, when the Spurs say 2 to 3 weeks, I'd bet on 3 before I'd bet on 2.
And it might go longer than that.
and start from there. But I guess if there is cold comfort in this, it's that they're not the only team going through it, and that just because you are without a guy or 2 guys or 3 guys, you're going to be playing other teams who are out a guy, 2 guys, 3 guys. And it's not really the excuse to lose 6 games in a row. Not that they're looking at it that way, But they're still winnable games. Starting Tuesday night against Memphis, they're still going to be the favorites. Atlanta on Thursday, that's not an unwinnable game, even without your full strength roster. You just soldier on.
I mean, just to your point, Ja Morant is not playing for the Grizzlies tonight. And do you want to know why? Calf strain.
They've got, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And yeah, it has become a 2 to 3 week injury at best. A number of cases go on longer than that. We don't really know specifically what Victor has. If you want me just to talk out of my rear end, it seems like it probably isn't worse than what Dylan Harper had. Like we saw that happen in that game against Phoenix.
I would venture to say it's not as serious
Correct.
as what Dylan Harper had.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I haven't seen the MRI, but just judging from what I have seen with my eyes, I would think he's
Well, what we
probably
know
a little
for
better
sure is
than
what we
Dylan
know
was.
for sure is that he suffered this calf injury against the Golden State Warriors in that game. We have been told that. And we watched Victor Wembanyama walk into the media room after that. We saw him finish the game. We saw him call for the ball. We can get into this later. We saw him call for the ball on the last play of that game. He was still on the court. We saw him walk into the media room, have a very pleasant conversation with us, which we'll talk about later. We saw him walk out of the media room. And in Phoenix, we saw Dylan Harper suffer the calf injury, and we saw him not finish the game. We saw him limp towards the locker room, and we saw him get strapped into a walking boot, and we saw him, or Tom and I did, struggle out of the arena on crutches. So when like that leads you to believe that those are two different injuries in terms of severity. I guess I'm not a doctor. Maybe Victor's is worse than it looked, but I tend to believe, just based on all evidence, Occam's razor would have me to believe that Dylan Harper's was more serious than Victor Wembanyama's was. Does that mean he's going to be back in 3 weeks? No, I'm not guaranteeing that. But I think there's reason to be optimistic that it won't be as bad as Dylan Harper's. And actually, Dylan Harper is progressing, correct?
Yeah, he's out of the boot now, but he was in the boot for a couple of weeks. Like it wasn't like he just wore the boot home from Phoenix. Like he was I think he got out of the boot sometime when the Spurs were in Chicago, whenever that was.
Mm-hmm.
So he's out of the boot and doing a little more physical stuff, but yeah, he's still a few weeks away. Dylan Harper is. The ramifications of Victor's absence, like if he misses a month, that's about 13 games, I think. And that's a chunk of the season. Like you have to win some of those games without him. One point
It's the cup. The cup that cost him the cup.
It could cost him the cup. One point I make there is you're going to miss Victor. You're going to miss Victor. I mean, I think that's not breaking news, but they are far more equipped to deal with his absence this season than they were last year when he went out with the blood clot. They're probably, if he were to miss the rest of this, he's not going to miss the rest of the season. This is hypothetical. If he were to be out for the season, no, they're not making the playoffs. But they have, with Luke Kornet here, with a healthy De'Aaron Fox, they can weather 4 months. 4 months, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, and maybe tread water enough to where they can still be in that mix. I think last year Mitch had no options when Victor was out. They had signed Biyombo to kind of be an emergency guy, and then they had to start him. And then they had to play Jeremy Sohan at a lot of small ball center, which he will still do, but that doesn't need to be like, if that's your only option, that's bad. It needs to be one of the options. But now they've got Luke Kornet, who's been a starter. He's been a fill-in starter for the Celtics on very good teams. He's a guy that's not going to do Victor Wembanyama things so much. Well, let me change that. He's not going to do the spectacular Victor Wembanyama things, but the fundamental things, the rim protection, the size, just basketball acumen. Luke Kornet will help the Spurs tread water a little bit. And so they have that. They have Kelly Olynyk, who's not the same kind of big man, but they have bigger bodies this year. to kind of fill in for Wembanyama's absence that they didn't have last year. So they're better equipped. Again, I think if you had to go the rest of the season with this roster, not not as much of a playoff shoe-in, but if you have the bodies to maybe get through a few weeks, I think.
I'll go two polar opposite responses to that. One the good vibes, one the bad vibes. The good vibes is have you looked at the Western Conference and like the bottom half of it lately? Like there's a lot of train wrecks there.
I'm aware,
And
but like
and
you go too long without Victor, you're one of the train wrecks.
I don't think so. That's my point, is that like there are 7 good teams in the Western Conference.
Yes, we've done
that I feel comfortable about making the playoffs, and the Spurs are one of those teams. And a bad team is going to finish 9th and 10th. Like a bad team, a team that with serious issues is going to finish in the 9th and 10th spot. You start looking at it, and either a bad team or a team like Portland, who's not bad but just is not ready. Like a team that's not ready is going to make it. So that's the good vibes thing, is that there's the bottom for this team, assuming everybody other than Victor is available, is not that far down the Western Conference standings. Now the bad vibe response is Victor's not the only guy out. And a year ago when Victor left, you still had quote unquote too many point guards, and you had a whole bunch of guys who could play on the perimeter. I don't think that the Stephon Castle injury is long-term, might not be beyond Tuesday night against Memphis, but that's a concern. Dylan Harper is out for much of the time that Victor's going to be out, presumably. That's a concern. Even the other J-Mac, not Jeff McDonald, but Jordan McLaughlin is out Tuesday night. So you're running short on guard bodies, and De'Aaron Fox just came back from a hamstring injury. Like, that's the concern, is not can the Spurs weather 3 weeks without Victor Wembanyama, which I think they could hold up okay if that was the only guy. The concern is you need to make sure that the rest of the roster holds up, and that might be tenuous. That's my concern there. You want to get Stephon Castle back at some point, relatively soon. You want to make sure that De'Aaron Fox holds up. You want to make sure that Dylan Harper sort of trends in the right direction. But in the meantime, that's a lot of pressure on De'Aaron Fox, who has had a pretty good week or so back. He had one big game that a lot of people were disappointed in, one big moment that a lot of people were disappointed in. But this is now going to be a big De'Aaron Fox week moving forward.
He's going to have to carry them a little bit, or lead them. Might be the better way to put it. And he has. It was kind of a roller coaster week for him, De'Aaron. I think more good than bad. I just think people look at the end of that second Golden State game and kind of ding him a lot, which I understand. Those are the moments your clutch player has to come up clutch. But he's been pretty good since he came back. Most of it playing off of Victor, but against Sacramento, his old team, Victor was out that game, and De'Aaron had to carry more of the load. And he had his, he set a season high in scoring with 28, season high assist at 11. It was a really big part of that win over the Kings. And a thing that Mitch said that was interesting to me was, if you're in I'm paraphrasing all of this. If you're in De'Aaron Fox's shoes and everybody's healthy on the Spurs, you got Victor, you got Stephon Castle, you got even Dylan Harper on the floor. Those are a lot of options. If you're De'Aaron Fox, to how to handle that. Do I take over? Do I let this guy take over? Do I throw the ball here? Do I stand, play off the ball? All those things. And Mitch said, in a way, with these guys out, De'Aaron it takes all the options away, and he can just be super aggressive. He doesn't have to overthink anything. And so I think we're going to see a pretty aggressive, a pretty high scoring De'Aaron Fox here over the next couple weeks until they start getting some of these bodies back. So I think that's something to look for going forward.
This is almost an obsolete discussion now, but it's worth going over. I think even though it is becoming obsolete with Victor out and with the Spurs needing De'Aaron Fox to do a lot, just because it was an important story since our last podcast, was the big game, Amazon Prime game, NBA Cup game against the Warriors last Friday, when in the final minute, De'Aaron Fox took and missed two basically 18-foot jumpers on the Spurs' last two possessions and missed them, and the Spurs lost by one basket. The last one, Victor Wembanyama is near the basket on the right block. Draymond Green is guarding him. There was a huge moment earlier in that game, a viral moment where Victor and Draymond went back and forth, and Victor got possibly the best dunk of the year that did not count in the NBA, and sort of stared Draymond down. The point I want to make about that is I think it's understandable. I think it's fine to be disappointed and to even call out De'Aaron Fox for missing those shots. But it's not okay to call him out for taking those shots, because, and I think that's an important difference. It's because those are the shots that De'Aaron Fox was acquired to take. Those are the shots that the Spurs had in mind when they gave up 3 first-round draft picks. So it was 4, but 1 didn't convey. 3 first-round draft picks to acquire De'Aaron Fox last February. Those were the shots they had in mind when they made De'Aaron Fox the highest paid player in franchise history this summer. Like, De'Aaron Fox is a clutch player, and that's not just Spurs Insider podcast telling you that. That is, he won the first ever Clutch Player of the Year award in the NBA by an overwhelming margin. Like 90 something of the 100 votes went to De'Aaron Fox. And that was just 2 years ago. This is what he's supposed to do. And in those situations, like, could you lob the ball to Victor Wembanyama there? Would you like to see the offense run through Victor Wembanyama? I can understand that. That wouldn't necessarily be wrong. But it's also not wrong to have your clutch player take the shots that he was acquired to take. And sometimes they go in and sometimes they don't. And you'd like to see them go in. But I just want to go on record, and I've written about this in the paper and expressnews.com. I have no problem at all with him taking those shots. And I don't think that was a failure of a plan. I think it was a failure in execution. You didn't make the shots. But I think he'll make more of those than he misses. And, again, this is sort of an unnecessary discussion considering where the Spurs are going to be over the next 3 weeks. But I think it was just worth addressing. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, the point of having 2 of those guys is to have 2 good choices in those situations.
Yeah.
And so neither one of them is necessarily wrong, I don't think. Could you throw the ball down there to Vic? Yeah, maybe. Does Draymond foul him? End up fouling? I mean, Draymond had him pretty penned. Like, it wasn't an easy play if you throw it to Vic. Does Draymond foul him? Probably. Do you want to? Are the refs going to call that at that point? Well, you don't know. Like, it just seems like De'Aaron Fox taking a De'Aaron Fox 18-footer seems simple and fine.
Yeah, and De'Aaron was fronting him. But another thing, I looked at that play several times, and Steph is on the weak side, anxious to double down on Victor. Like this, so you have Draymond on one side and Steph on the other. And one thing we've learned about the Victor Wembanyama experience in 2 years and a month is that the entry pass is often harder than it looks and more complicated than it looks. It's not so simple as to just dump the ball to him and let him cook. Like, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And if De'Aaron Fox makes that shot with the last seconds draining off the clock against Golden State or the Golden State Warriors, like that's a shot that's going to have reverberations throughout the season, because that's the shot that teams are going to think about defending the next time that happens. And maybe then the next pass goes to Victor, where Steph isn't doubling, or whether Draymond cheats over more to defend De'Aaron. I think there were lots of reasons why that was the right play. And again, if he would have thrown it to Victor and Victor made it, sure, that's the right play too. But Jeff is exactly right. They have more than one right option now. And to kind of pile on and talk about how terrible of a choice that was and how the Spurs should have done it differently after the fact, I just don't. I'm not going to join in that chorus. I was fine with that. And now we're going to see if De'Aaron can do it more on his own over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and it's going to be his show. I mean, I guess when Steph's there, it will be less. There'll be more. He'll have more help. We don't know how long Steph's. I did talk to Steph Castle briefly in the locker room after that game, and he was he didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. He just said he couldn't even. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but he couldn't really pinpoint when that injury occurred in that game. He said, "I don't know what happened. Just kind of got sore on me." So, but it doesn't sound like something that's going to keep him out long term. So, getting him back, because he's played so well this year, that will help weather the storm, as we keep saying.
I'm not sure we had. I guess there were 2 De'Aaron Fox games under the Spurs belt when we met last week, and we might have brought up the fact, I think we did, that they were 2 big Stephon Castle assist games and 2 good all around Stephon Castle games. But that's, if you're looking for bright sides for the Spurs moving forward, if Stephon Castle does come back, he's proven that he's a pretty good, that he knows how to play with De'Aaron Fox on the floor. That's a pretty good tandem. We're really missing Tom to fill in all these dead spaces.
Yeah. We are. Well, here's a since we're going back, you can't go wrong talking about Victor, right? Another ramification of him missing a good number of games probably is when do they change that 65 game rule for NBA awards? I know you don't care about them, but some people do. And there's a scenario this year where Victor again can't be Defensive Player of the Year, can't be All NBA because he had because he had a groin strain. And I think when the NBA instituted that calf strain, sorry, thank you. When the NBA instituted, I failed I wasn't good at that operation game growing up. I was terrible. So I know my body parts. When the NBA instituted that rule, I think it was in good faith and everyone's heart was in the right place. It was basically to combat load management. But you're seeing so many people miss games that aren't load management related at all. And I'm open to the idea that maybe there needs to be some wiggle room in there. And I don't know. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to the wrong.
I know.
I mean, I will say that.
Care for a second.
I will say that came up with the De'Aaron Fox comeback plan, and that the plan, like, that was something that was considered. It wasn't number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or number 4 on the list of priorities, but when the plan was presented to De'Aaron, it was sort of presented in that, hey, you can come back in plenty of time you won't miss enough games to keep you from all NBA awards, and you come back full strength, able to make, let's say you play 72 games, those 72 games will be full strength and you won't be limited. So those 72 games will look good. And you're not going to miss enough to where you fall below the threshold. That was something that was sort of discussed, and teams do discuss it because it does matter to the players. They care about it. it does matter to their pocketbooks, to their wallets, because there's money associated with making these teams. So I do think that that might be something worth addressing. And then you say, well, do you drop it from 65 to 60? And then, like, what's the point anyway?
Yeah.
You're just right. You're right back to the question that's up to the voters. And I think, Jeff, you are a voter, which might be why you care about it a little more. But like, those are the questions that you sort of have to, if you're going to trust the voters with the votes that affect some of these contracts and some of this money and this prestige, then I think you should be able to trust them to decide how many games missed is too many.
Right. I mean,
Like, that's the decision you guys were weighing
right.
every year anyway.
Before it was, codified in the NBA collective bargaining agreement, any voter would totally weigh that. Yeah, Kawhi had a great year, but he only played in 40 games. So, he gets dinged for that, or I won't vote for him for that. Did I have a number in mind? You have to play X amount of games? No, but it was just, you just kind of, you weighed it all. You weighed it all. And when you look at Victor last year, he played in 46 or something like that? Maybe a little more than that. It was 40 something. Fell way below the 65 game threshold, but he still led the league in total blocks, not blocks per game, total blocks, and led the league in total blocks by a huge margin. And you're telling me that guy should at least be eligible for the Defensive Player of the Year award because he had a blood clot. I don't know. If you can still have that kind of impact in a limited number of games, I would still consider voting for you. I'll put it that way. But I wasn't allowed to. We weren't allowed to because of the 65 game thing. And now Victor might be screwed by it again. I don't know that I think you can miss 17 games, right? I don't know that he'll miss 17 games with this thing, but what happens is you have a long-term injury, and then there's one down the road where you tweak an ankle, or you one down the road where you bang a knee, and it gets to be, do you sit that one out and miss the threshold, or do you, so it doesn't give you a lot of leeway when you miss a big chunk like this. And I'd like to see them revisit that rule or think about it. I don't have the answers. 'Cause like I said at the top of this, the people's hearts were in the right place. The league's hearts were in the right place. Like, we're not gonna reward people for the load management stuff. And it was meant to sort of combat that. I don't think it's really worked, and I think it's actually punished more people whose hearts are in the right place, who are trying to be out there every night, but suffered deep vein thrombosis or a calf strain or something.
I think you're right, and I think when you look at it, it's not the load management that's really an issue anymore. It's these 2-week injuries that are just spreading around the league like hotcakes.
Which maybe points to the fact that the load management might have been a good idea.
Correct. That's where I was getting to. Is that there's less load management and more 2-week absences. So maybe
we all know the
load management wasn't the problem.
You can't play 82 games anymore. But no one's going to do that. Like, no one's going to change that. It's going to be 82. No one wants to give up the money. Yeah. But it's too many games, especially, to bring this conversation full circle, especially the way teams are playing it now. Nobody can play 82 games of that over 6 months and survive, really. Although the Spurs did have three Ironmen last year. Yeah. They had 3 guys play all of them.
2 of those guys are still on pace to do it this year. Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagny playing pretty much exactly how you'd expect them to play in their roles. Like, they're doing their jobs. The other one who did that is not playing for a much worse team than the Spurs. We talked about train wrecks earlier.
Chris, yeah.
Our friend Chris Paul is, first of all, looking like a 40-year-old man when he's out there. I haven't seen them play a lot. I've seen bits and pieces. But it was probably a wise move for the Spurs to move on. I mean, that was obvious. And also, he's just not on the floor a lot for a team that's 4-10.
I mean, it's the thing with Chris Paul we talked about last year was what he told us was if he's going to, he's big on his family, as we know.
Yep.
If
Yep.
he's going to leave his family for the season, it's going to be somewhere to play. He's not going to come to San Antonio and come off the bench.
Yep.
But the flip side of that, the trade-off seems to be if he can go back to L.A., then he can.
Yep.
He doesn't mind coming off the bench so much.
Where
He's
his
around
family,
his family, and
family lives. Yes.
you have to. Yeah, you have. If he's going to, it's a trade-off he's willing to make the other way, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Maybe he's just disgruntled as all hell over there. I have no idea. I haven't talked to anybody or.
I mean,
No.
disgruntled is a strong word. I'm sure he's ornery because he's ornery when he's happy. I loved hanging out with him. I loved talking to him. We make fun, but he was fun to have around a year. I think he's going to pay dividends. That year's going to pay dividends for Stefan Castle for a long time, for a lot of those guys in that locker room who learned some stuff about being a pro.
Yeah, just to hijack it, that pass, that kind of skip pass that Steph keeps making to the corner for corner threes, usually to Julian Champagny. That was he said, I stole that from Chris. Like, Chris is the one that showed me to make that pass. And even Julian's like, yeah, this is exactly what Chris would do. So to your point, a lot of that year that he was here is going to pay off for guys on this team for years to come.
Yep. And people didn't like it was a year where he played 82 games and the Spurs lost 50 of them, close to 50 of them. And then he moved on, and just looking at that from a distance, you might say, what was the point of the Chris Paul year in San Antonio? Why did he waste a year there? Why did the Spurs waste a year with him? That was not a wasted year for either of them, I don't think. I think that's a year that they were happy with the investment they made. They were happy with the currency of experience that they got from Chris Paul, and it was a good deal. And hope Chris is at least finding ways to enjoy himself in some ways with the Clippers. We're moving forward. I mentioned earlier that there's a Memphis game. We're recording this on Tuesday morning. You might not, if your routine is to listen to it on Wednesday morning, that game will already have been played. But those are the Trainwreck Grizzlies visiting Frostbank Center on Tuesday night. The Atlanta Hawks, the team with which the Spurs have pick swap rights this year, and it's looking like a down-to-the-wire thing as to which pick will be higher, the Spurs or the Hawks. They both have similar records. Hawks in an easier conference. They come in on Thursday with another player who's sidelined, one of the many stars around the league who's sidelined. Trae Young isn't playing, but the Hawks are weathering the storm without him. And then a road trip to Phoenix on Sunday before we meet again. That's 3 games, Jeff. But before we do the typical 1 week prediction, you alluded to it earlier, and I know you got to go to shoot around. But let's play out 3 weeks. That might be more fun.
You have a weird idea of fun, but okay.
Just because let's look at what the Spurs have while Victor Wembanyama might be out.
All right, let me call up my trusty Spurs app with the schedule on it.
Do you have an endorsement deal with the Spurs app?
Well, it's very buggy. I keep having to restart it. So
so you don't have a endorsement deal if you're talking about its bugginess.
What do I look like, Frostbank, to you?
Let's say this: 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We will take them through December 8th, which there are cup games after that. We're not going to get into what unannounced cup games might be coming up, but that gives them that puts you through about 3 weeks of the evaluation period. And I'll just call them out, and we'll see what games the Spurs should win. Versus Memphis at home, that's 1. Versus Atlanta at home, I'm not gonna make that automatic. At Phoenix, not gonna make that automatic. Phoenix has been playing better. At Portland, not gonna make that automatic. At Denver, at Minnesota, at home against Memphis, should win that one. You think maybe Stefan Castle, maybe Dylan Harper's back for that. At Orlando, at Cleveland, at New Orleans, there's another one you should win. Of that group, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. There's 3 that you feel like you should have for sure. And then
I
a bunch of coin flips. I don't think it's unreasonable to go to weather through that at 5-5.
That was my first reaction, my first pass through it was you have a shot at going 500 there.
Yeah.
You do. I don't know.
And if you get Castle back, a team with De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle and the role guys the Spurs have, as you mentioned and wrote about in the newspaper, the Spurs are better equipped at center behind Victor now. Luke Kornet has played really
Kornet's
well.
going to be huge. He's going to be huge during this.
He's going to be huge. I don't think it's a disaster. I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect 5-5 and maybe even better than that. That's a tough long road trip. Phoenix, Portland, Denver, Minnesota over Thanksgiving. But you can get through this. And I guess that's where we're gonna leave you. You can get through this.
Always have to leave it on a positive. You can get through this.
Yeah.
This too shall pass.
We'll get through it. Get through it till next week when we see you next time. Until then, take care of each other and keep it real.